Good morning, beloved. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever it is that you are watching the broadcast, hello, 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 hello. It's wonderful to connect with you. Wonderful to say hi. Hello, how do you do? What is happening? What is going on with you? Blessings, blessings, and more blessings. Um, blessings, blessings, and more blessings. Um, let's see. Let me say blessings, blessings, and more blessings. For those who will be live, yes, 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 let's do it. For those who will hashtag and replay it, I love it. For those who will be on and I don't know you on and I might not never know you on, I could appreciate that. And for those who will be used by Papa at some point down the road to encourage this girl, let's make it do what it do. Let's make it do what it do. Let's make it do what it do. Um, yeah, let's make it do what it do. Um, so this week we've been talking about relationships. We've been talking about relationships, and I want to talk about relationships dynamics. Relationship dynamics. Are your relationship dynamics healthy or not? Are they healthy or are they not healthy? And do you need to do something different? Of course, if they're healthy, you continue what you're doing. Um, you don't necessarily have to change anything, but maybe keep improving. I believe in continued improvement. So maybe just keep improving. But if they're not healthy, do you know what healthy looks like for you? Would be one question for me. Do you know what healthy looks like? And do you know how to get there? Good morning, Erica. Good morning, honey. And do you know how to get there? Because what's the point of having relationships, of being in relationships, if we can't be in a healthy one? Like, what's the point? Because you're not living, like, we're not showing up as our real self, as our true self, as our authentic self, then that's not really living, right? It's not really living. So I'm not talking about, well, I'm just going to get them a piece of my mind. They just going to know. I'm not talking about that, right? Because that's, good morning, cousin. Welcome. All is well. I pray the same for you. So I'm not talking about that because that's something else. You know, there are some times when we're working through things and we need to work through them. We don't necessarily need to drag other people with us through it with us, right? We need to work on our stuff, right? Um, as opposed to, because sometimes it's leftovers. Sometimes our stuff is leftovers from past stuff, and current situations don't necessarily need to be dragged into. So it's similar to, if you've been in a past romantic relationship and you're in a current one and you keep treating the other one person as if you keep treating the current person expecting them to do what the other person does, right? So whereas we want to be able to tell the truth in relationships and things like that, it's using wisdom. Like sometimes we don't, we need to work through things and not drag everybody with us through our stuff while we're working through. Like we can have a situation with somebody and have a feeling or a response to something that don't necessarily need to be shared, right? Don't necessarily. Now, not hiding something, like we don't want to hide something. But I know there are times when something happened and I have an internal response and I know it really don't have anything to do with what's happening right now. That internal response is tied to something else. So I'm not getting ready to drag the person I'm with right now through that because that don't have nothing to do with them. It don't have nothing to do with them. It has to do with the history. So I'm going to work on it so that I'm not triggered over and over and over again in the present about something that happened in the past. Do you see? The other piece, it's so many elements to relationships to check to see the health of your relationship with yourself, your relationship with other people, your relationship with God, right? Check to see of the health of it. Like, are you able to be truthful in your relationships? If you're not, then I'm going to ask you to check the health of it. Are you able to share the hard things that that may be difficult to share, but necessary, right? Because if you're not able to, then the health of your relationship is in question. And so it may have nothing to do with the other person. It may have everything to do with you. It may have to do with the other person. It may be because of the way you've seen them respond to other people. I don't know. It may be because of the way that they've responded to you in the past. But if you're in a relationship and there's something that should be shared and you're not sharing it, then you got to check the health of that relationship. You got to call it into question, because what does that mean? It means that you aren't able to really show up as your full self, and the other person doesn't really get to experience the truth about you. Do you see? And so we need to check that, right? And so that's one dynamic. So many dynamics in relationships. Can you trust the person to do what they say they're going to do, right? So there's transparency, authenticity, like and then there is trust and truthfulness, right? Appropriate transparency. We don't share everything, right? Right. So this idea that you're not hiding, right? The ideas of transparency, this idea that you're open and honest and that you are clear, that you share the necessary information. So that's transparency. Transparency in relationships are absolutely imperative. So my question my question on the floor is, how open are you in your relationships? How honest are we in our relationships? Do we share the necessary information in our relationships? Transparency, that's openness, honesty, and a clear disclosure of information, right? And authenticity, authenticity means that we are able to be our true self, right? We're able to be our true self. Because if we're not able to be, yes, trust and truthfulness is good. Right. If we're not able to be our true self in relationships, and we're continuing in the relationship, I've got to question what's going on. Because if we're hiding, then think about children. If children hide generally for two reasons. They hide because they're playing a game, or they hide because they're in fear. They hide because they're playing game, or they hide because they're in fear. Good morning, Ray Price. It is hump day. So if we think about that in relationships as adults, and we're hiding because we're playing, right? Meaning that we are, have some level of deceit, or because we're afraid, right? We have some level of fear. So we're not being truthful about the dynamics in our relationship, right? So we're not being truthful. So that's an unfair situation for everybody involved. So if I'm walking down the street, let's just say, if we're walking down the street, we pass a Dairy Queen. I say, let's get ice cream, and you don't like ice cream, or let's flip it. You say, let's get ice cream, and I say yes, but I know I really don't prefer ice cream. Right? That's something small, but and then to discover later, oh, you with somebody else, and they say, well, where do you want to go? You want to have cake? You want to? And I say, well, I don't really like ice cream. You looking like, we just had ice cream. What is that? You see, trustworthiness, truthfulness, authenticity, transparency. Those are key elements in relationships that set up dynamics that that speak to whether or not a relationship is healthy or not, right? Whether or not a relationship is healthy or not. And so there's no perfect relationship, that I know. There's no perfect relationship. However, if we can't be ourselves for whatever the reasons are, if we're not being ourselves, if we are hiding or pretending or wearing masks, all the things, then we want to work on that. We want to work on that. Is it worth it? No relationship is worth us hiding. None. No relationship is worth us pretending to be who we're not. No relationship is worth what it costs us to not tell ourselves or others the whole truth. No relationship is worth it. It's just not worth it. Because you got to look at yourself in the mirror. We don't ever want to we don't ever want to deceive ourselves. Right? We don't ever want to deceive ourselves and pretend like something isn't what it is. And so relationship, that we've been talking about relationship all week long. And we get to decide. Again, we get to decide. We're the first example of how the world gets to treat us. We're the first example. And if we do not do our own work, set our own boundaries, if we do not declare what is acceptable and not acceptable for ourselves, then the world's got it's got free reign with us. The world gets to do what it wants to do. So, So yeah, relationship dynamics. I'm inviting you to assess, are your relationships healthy or not? Or what level of health? Because it don't have to be either or. It could be on the continuum. Over here is not healthy. Over here is healthy. How far away are you from healthy? What dynamics stop you from getting closer and closer to healthy? Work on those. Work on those. If it's not healthy and you're just moving further and further away from health, you want to question that. You want to question that. And so, again, transparency in relationships is this idea of basically being able to show your full self, right? And what I don't mean when I talk about transparency is I don't mean like telling all your business. I don't mean that at all. However, let me see. So honesty is the idea of telling the truth, and transparency is about proactively sharing information, right? So we're honest. So we think about this. We want honesty and transparency, because honesty is about telling the truth when asked. Transparency is when we share the truth when we're not asked. Do you know? It's like proactively sharing information, even when not specific. So it's about being open, clear, forthcoming, allowing others to see the full picture. Open, clear, forthcoming, allowing others to see the full picture, right? That's what transparency is about. And so I'm inviting all of us to look at where we are in our relationships. Do we have transparency? And if we don't have transparency, then why not? Why not? Is it not safe? What stops you from allowing others to see the full picture? You say, yes, I get it, Auntie. I used to hide what's going on to some people because I felt I couldn't be honest. And that bothered me so much because I always want to be truthful in a relationship. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, yeah, I like this. So let's see. I'm reading definitions, right? Authenticity refers to being genuine and true to oneself, while transparency involves openly sharing information and being clear about one's actions and intentions. Authenticity is about the core essence of who you are, while transparency is about how much you reveal. Authenticity is imperative, being who you are, your truth, right? While transparency is about how much you will, show, how open and honest you are about your actions, your decisions, your intentions. Yeah. And let me see what else I wanted to say about this. Relationship authenticity often leads to deeper and more meaningful relationships because it is built on a genuine connection. Transparency builds trust and fosters open communications. And so, we have to decide what relationships we want to have, what kind of relationships we want to have. We decide that. And so check your truthfulness, check your authenticity, check your genuineness, check your, so here's some elements I'm inviting us to look up and look at our relationships and see where we are. Authenticity, transparency, genuineness, truthfulness, and it was one more. Let me see, what's that other one that I looked up? Maybe that's those are the ones. Okay. And give ourselves a, give ourselves a score, a rating, assess it, and see if there's some adjustments that you might need to make so that you are living your fullest life. We're living our fullest life. Like, what's the point in being in relationships if we can't be honest in them? Now, again, I'm not talking about that nonsense about I'm just going to tell them. Well, I'm just going to tell the truth. And so when it's got that attitude, yes, the truth makes us free. Truth makes us free. Truth will set us free. And so tomorrow, if I remember, I'll talk about the difference in a sharing that's life-giving. So transparency is about sharing information that wasn't necessarily elicited. So honesty, like we want to be honest about something. Sometimes we need to share some things. We're honest, and it doesn't feel good to share what is the truth, to being honest, right? And that we have to do that in relationships. But also transparency, sometimes in the guise of transparency, we're hurting people with the facts of what's going on. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that tomorrow. All right, beloved, I love you. I appreciate you. I value you. At the moment, Abba gave us our breath. Me and you, we forfeited. We relinquished. You and I gave up the right to not be amazing. So love you, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.